Right here, guys, the next step on our lamp table is going to be working on getting our aprons cut down. Our aprons are this piece right here. They go between the legs. There's 4 of them. They'll go in between all these pieces, and they help hold the table together at an equal distance. And they also, that's where we're going to be mounting our tabletop to it. So we're going to take a look. The aprons, here's a really good view of them. See how they go in between the legs. The aprons get tooled. They wind up getting some tenons ripped into them, and that will go into the mortise groove that we put into our legs. But in order to get them to that, we need to cut them down to our, excuse me, our finished size. We need to cut and rip them down. So let's take a look. It says here aprons. There's 4 of them, and they're 3/4 of an inch thick by 3.5 inches wide by 12 inches long. So we know that they're going to have to be over 12 inches to start with, and obviously they need to be over 3.5 inches wide to start with. And we're going to make those out of poplar. Reason being is because poplar is one of our cheaper types of wood that we have in here. And we either want to find a poplar board that's going to be close to that 3.5 inches, or obviously over 7 inches, so that we can get a couple out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look through the lumber rack here. I'm going to see what we have. I'm going to get some stuff out, and then we'll meet over at the chop saw. I went ahead and I picked out a few pieces of wood. Piece is really close, 3 5/8. So we should be able to get a piece out of this. So picked out another piece over here. It's kind of a weird looking piece, might work really well for this. Odds are we're going to cut 1 piece out of this side here, and then we should be able to get 2 pieces out of this side over here. It's a little bit wider than I would have liked. This appears to be somewhere around maybe 5 3/4. It's 5 13/16, so it's a little bit wider than what I would normally like. But it's got a knot down here, so it's kind of a board, I guess it'd be all right for us to use. So I went ahead, I set up just a little temporary stop down here so we can get them cut down, set up somewhere around 12.5 inches. That'll give us enough room to cut them, to join them, to rip them, and then cut them again down to our final length. So we're going to go ahead and cut a few of these here real quick. Let's right over here. One. Now if we take a look right here, we're nice and tight over here, but this board's got a little bit of a dive to it down here, so we can do 1 or 2 things. We can turn it around and see how it fits. It does fit pretty nice. Or we could have switched hands and done it that way there. Go like this. So remember that whenever we're cutting rough lumber like this right here, when we order this lumber happens to be S2S, so it's only surfaced on these 2 sides, and I get it S2S down to 3/4 of an inch, because that's what we make most of our projects out of. And then it's our job to go ahead and tool these down and get them, flush, straight on this edge, and then rip it down. We want to get them nice and square, so it's always important to cut stuff a little bit longer than we want it in the beginning, and then obviously we want it a little bit wider than what we need when we go ahead and pick it out, so that we can rip it down to our final width. So this one right here, I'm actually going to take a little smidge off the end right here. We can still see this is right where the chainsaw had cut it when it was still whole. And I'll move this here down. It's a wasted piece. Use that for something else later on, unless we'll see if it's over 12 inches. She's a beaut, Clark. Guess what? We can get all those pieces out of that one board that I grabbed. That's amazing. Made out fantastic. All right, we're going to come over here to the joiner, and we're going to join them down. I'm not even going to hit stop. I'm just going to move it. Bet you that made you feel pretty dizzy. All right. So we want to pick out our prettiest sides when we go ahead and joint. Obviously, we're not going to joint this side. Not going to joint this side. And the reason why we picked the prettiest side is because it takes less times to run on down through the joiner here. All right, so we've got 4 jointed sides. We're going to go ahead and meet over at the table saw. I'm going to rip these down. Right back here at the table saw, we're going to get the table saw here set up. It's about an 1/8 to 1/4 inch above the piece of wood. Our ripping width, I'm going to confirm, I believe it's 3.5 inches. Set up at 3.5 inches. So we're ready to go ahead, and we're going to rip these bad boys here all down. And once they're ripped down, we know that this is a trued edge right here because we jointed it. So once this edge here is true, we put it against our table saw fence, and when we run it down through, since this side is true and it follows this nice true edge right here, it will then true up this side. Then we'll go meet over at the chop saw, and we're going to cut them down square and cut them down to final length. Down. Push it. Two pieces are still usable for something later on. If we wanted to get real crafty, we can glue them together. Use it for another piece. All right, so right now we're considered to be S4S because we're surfaced on 1, 2, 3, and 4 sides. So these are good. Now when we go over the chop saw, we're going to go ahead and we're going to square up one edge and cut it to our final length. Because these 2 edges, they might be square, but we don't know. We're going to have to square them up to be 100%. So we're going to meet over the chop saw. Got our 4 pieces right here. And I'm going to show you how I would like to set this up. I'm going to grab my non-short one. And I want to start off by squaring up this edge right here. How I took off just a little bit. I'm now going to measure 12 inches. And here's how I like to set up this stop. And the reason why we set up the stop Number one, make sure that they're all the same length. I have that line just on this side of the blade, and then lock this down. As I was saying, the reason why we put the make a stop is because we'll know that they're all the same length as long as we don't bang into our stop. And when we're in here in class and we have 20 kids that need to run it through, 20 times 4 is 80. It would take us a long time to go ahead and measure these all out and cut them. So it saves us a tremendous amount of time. I'm just going to grab this board right here. This is for my stop. Good. Nice and tight right there. I'm going to go ahead and put this right here. Hold it really good. And we're going to cut it. Now I like to let it stop since we have pressure over here and pressure over here. That way it doesn't lift it up. Grab our board. All right, and we are maybe a smidgen over 12 inches. So we're just gonna move this in a little bit. Double check that. Oops, too much. More this way. All right, double check it before we cut it. All right, look at that, 12 inches right on the money. So now that we have our stop over here set up, we would go ahead and cut the rest of these just like this. Now I happen to know that my shortest one is on the bottom. That one is really close. I'm going to explain that one to you here in about 1 minute. So we come over, right? We have to do the cut. Cut, because now it's square. Now it's cut to our final length. Cut. Square. Final length. This one here was really close to 12 inches, so we're going to take off just a whisker. Just a little. Let's hope it's long enough. Woo! Just barely. Thank God we didn't take off any more than we did. Beautiful. So now we have 4 perfectly good trued pieces of lumber, and they're to our final ripping width. They're to our final length. If we wanted to, if we were maybe waiting for the table saw at this point here, we could sand these on our face grains. But the next video that we're going to do is we're going to show you guys how to go ahead and put the dado blade in the table saw, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually put our tenions in these pieces here so that they fit into the mortises of our legs. So we're in great shape. That's a pretty fast moving project.